Hello, friends. I want you to imagine a crisp Saturday morning. You're out in the driveway of your home in a quiet suburb of Indianapolis, maybe getting the lawnmower ready or just walking out to grab the morning paper. You feel a faint buzz in your big toe. It's like a tiny electric shock, or maybe it feels like a stray hair is tickling your skin. You rub your foot against the carpet, you shake your leg out, and you think, I'm just getting older. It's just one of those things. You might even joke about it at the next family BBQ. But friends, what if I told you that this completely normal habit of brushing off these sensations is actually a hidden ticking time bomb in your body? A bomb that could strip away your independence and land you in a nursing home faster than you can imagine. I am not trying to scare you. I am trying to save you. Listen to me closely. Those pins and needles are not just aging. They are the sound of your nerves dying in slow motion. Think of your nerves like the high-voltage power lines that keep a city running. When those lines start to fray, the lights flicker. In your body, that flickering is the tingling. If the insulation, what we call the myelin sheath, gets eaten away by high blood sugar or poor circulation, the wires short circuit. Eventually, the signal stops entirely. That's when the numbness sets in. And that numbness is the most dangerous stage of all. Look at Jim, a retired school principal from Phoenix. Jim loved his afternoon golf games. He ignored the fuzziness in his feet for years because he didn't want to deal with the hassle of the doctor's office or the fear of a massive medical bill. One day, Jim stepped on a small rusty nail in his garage. Because his nerves were already dead, he didn't feel a thing. He went to bed, played golf the next day, and by the time his wife noticed the red streak going up his leg, it was too late. He spent 3 weeks in the hospital facing an amputation and a bill that wiped out his travel savings for the year. This is the reality of neglecting those signals. In today's video, I'm going to blow the whistle on this hidden danger. There's a lot of life-saving information today, so please stick with me until the very end. Before we dive into the dark truth, if you truly care about your health and maintaining your independence for years to come, please hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the notification bell. And if you find today's video helpful, type the words "nerves of steel" in the comments section below to support our community. Friends, I want you to listen to me very, very closely right now, because what I'm about to tell you could be the difference between spending your golden years on a cruise ship with your spouse or spending them in a cold, sterile nursing home room, waiting for a stranger to come change your bandages. Does this sound familiar to you? You're sitting in your favorite recliner, maybe watching the evening news, and you feel it, a faint buzzing in your big toe. Or maybe it's a slight tingling in your fingertips, like a tiny electric current is running just beneath the skin. You shake your hand out, you rub your feet, and you tell yourself, oh, it's just poor circulation. I'm just getting older. Friends, I am not here to fearmonger, but I am here to tell you the truth that your primary care doctor might be too rushed to explain, that tingling is not just an annoyance. It is a biological SOS. It is the sound of your nerves screaming as they slowly, agonizingly die off, one cell at a time. Take a look at Mike. Mike is 58 years old, a salt-of-the-earth guy from Gary, Indiana. For 30 years, Mike worked as a foreman in a steel mill. He's the kind of American who defines himself by his work ethic. He spent 12 hours a day on his feet, wearing heavy steel-toed boots, breathing in the heat of the furnace to make sure his kids could go to college, and his 401k was tucked away for his retirement with his wife, Linda. Mike's lifestyle was typical Midwest, hearty meals, a lot of meat and potatoes, gravy, and maybe a few too many sodas during those long, grueling shifts to keep his energy up. About 3 years ago, Mike started noticing that buzzing sensation I just mentioned. It felt like pins and needles, like his foot had fallen asleep and was just starting to wake up. He'd kick off his boots after work, rub his heels, and think, well, that's what happens when you're nearly 60 and you've been standing on concrete all day. He'd pop a couple of over-the-counter painkillers, grab a beer, and sit down to watch the football game. He ignored it because that's what we do, isn't it? We've been raised to be tough. We've been raised not to complain. But while Mike was ignoring that tingle, something horrific was happening inside his body. The turning point came on a Saturday morning in his garage. Mike was doing what he loved, tinkering with his old Chevy. He stepped out of his work boots and into some old sneakers, and as he was moving a crate of tools, he didn't notice a 3-inch jagged metal shard that had fallen off a shelf. He stepped right on it. Now listen to me, because this is where it gets terrifying. Mike didn't feel a thing. He didn't jump. He didn't yell. He just kept walking around that garage for 20 minutes. It wasn't until he looked down and saw a trail of dark, red blood on the concrete floor that he realized he was injured. He looked at the bottom of his foot and saw a deep, angry gash. But there was no pain, just an eerie, hollow numbness. Mike cleaned it up, put a bandage on it, and didn't tell Linda. He didn't want to worry her, and he certainly didn't want to deal with a high insurance deductible for a scratch. But within 48 hours, Mike's foot wasn't just numb, it was swollen to twice its size. It turned a sickening shade of deep purple, almost black. The heat coming off his leg felt like a radiator. When he finally collapsed in the kitchen, Linda called 911. Imagine the panic, friends. Imagine being rolled into that ER. The fluorescent lights blurring overhead, the smell of antiseptic filling your nose, and hearing the doctor say the words no American ever wants to hear. We might have to amputate. Mike sat there in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about his 401k. He realized that a single infection born from a nerve that had lost its ability to feel could drain every cent of his retirement savings in a matter of weeks. The cost of long-term care, the specialized shoes, the home health aides, his entire American dream was about to be liquidated to pay for a pins and needles sensation he thought was just fatigue. Now, why did this happen to Mike? And why might it be happening to you right now? Let's take a look under the hood. Let's do a slow-motion analysis of what is actually happening to your nerves when they start to tingle. Think of your nervous system like the electrical wiring in a high-performance American V8 engine. These nerves are wrapped in a protective coating called the myelin sheath. Think of this like the plastic insulation on a copper wire. Its job is to make sure the electrical signals from your brain reach your feet and hands at lightning speed. But when your blood sugar is even slightly elevated, maybe from years of Midwest comfort food or just the way our bodies process carbs as we age, your blood literally changes its chemistry. In slow motion, imagine your blood turning from a smooth, life-giving liquid into a thick, corrosive sludge. When there's too much glucose in your system, those sugar molecules start to stick to things. They undergo a process called glycation. It's like pouring Caro syrup into your gas tank. This sludge begins to coat the insides of the tiny microscopic blood vessels, the capillaries that feed your nerves. You see, your nerves are greedy. They need a constant second-by-second supply of oxygen and nutrients to survive. But as this sugar sludge builds up, it's like rust forming inside a thin copper pipe. The walls of the vessels become brittle. They start to crack. This is what we call microangiopathy. One by one, these tiny pipes burst or clog up entirely. Now, the nerve is starving. It is literally suffocating in the dark. As the nerve cell begins to starve, the first thing to go is that protective insulation, the myelin sheath. In slow motion, picture that plastic coating on the wire beginning to crack and flake off. Now, the electrical signal isn't contained anymore. It's leaking out into the surrounding tissue. That is exactly what you're feeling when you experience pins and needles. It is a literal short circuit in your body's electrical grid. Your brain is getting garbled, static-filled messages. It doesn't know how to interpret suffocation, so it translates it as buzzing, stinging, or heat. But it gets worse. As the starvation continues, the nerve cell itself, the neuron, begins to shrink. The fingers of the nerve that reach out to your skin, called axons, start to wither like a plant that hasn't been watered in a month. They retreat. They pull back from the surface of your skin. This is why Mike couldn't feel that metal shard. His nerves had literally retreated so far back that the surface of his skin was a dead zone. Listen to me closely. Once those nerves are dead, they are very, very hard to bring back. It's like a forest fire that has burnt the soil so deep that nothing can grow for decades. When the doctor told Mike his nerves had been cooked by his blood sugar, he wasn't exaggerating. The high glucose level in Mike's blood had been acting like a slow-moving blowtorch, searing the delicate protein structures of his nerve fibers for years. And friends, it isn't just about the feet. Think about the plumbing in your house. If the pipes are clogging in the basement, you can bet they're clogging in the attic too. If the nerves in your feet are dying, what do you think is happening to the nerves in your heart? What about the delicate vessels in your brain? This is the path to vascular dementia. This is the path to the ticking time bomb of a stroke. Mike's story has a bittersweet ending. He kept his leg, but only after 3 surgeries and a mountain of medical bills that forced him to delay his retirement by another 7 years. He has to walk with a cane now because he can't feel the ground beneath him properly. He lost his independence. He can't mow his own lawn anymore. He has to watch from the porch as his son-in-law does the work he used to take pride in. He feels like a guest in his own home, a burden to his family. Does this sound like the retirement you worked 30 years for? To be a prisoner of your own body because you ignored a buzzing sensation? You have to understand the gravity of this. When your nerves are under attack, your body is losing its ability to communicate with itself. It's like a general trying to run a battlefield when all the radio lines have been cut. Your brain thinks everything is fine, but down in the trenches of your toes and fingers, the enemy is winning. The enemy is inflammation. The enemy is oxidative stress. In slow motion, let's look at the cellular level one more time. Inside your nerve cells are tiny power plants called mitochondria. These are the V8 engines of the cell. When the oxygen supply is cut off by that thick, sugary blood sludge, these power plants start to backfire. They begin emitting toxic byproducts called free radicals. Imagine a car engine in a closed garage filling the space with deadly carbon monoxide. These free radicals bounce around inside the nerve cell, shredding the DNA and the cell membrane from the inside out. The cell eventually gives up and triggers a process called apoptosis, cell suicide. Friends, every time you feel that tingle and do nothing about it, you're presiding over a mass funeral of your own nerve cells. Let's talk about the financial reality, because we live in the real world. Do you know the average cost of a nursing home stay in America today? It can top $8,000 a month. If you lose your mobility, if you end up in a wheelchair because of neuropathy-related balance issues or amputations, your 401k will vanish faster than a paycheck on a Friday night. Your kids, who are trying to raise your grandkids, will be forced to choose between your care and their children's future. It is a heartbreaking, soul-crushing position to put your family in. But it doesn't have to be this way. Mike didn't have to lose those years. You don't have to lose your independence. The pins and needles are a warning, yes, but they are also an opportunity. It is your body giving you one last chance to clear out the sludge, to repair the wiring, and to get that V8 engine of yours purring again. You need to realize that the standard American diet and the standard American habit of ignoring pain are a lethal combination. We have been lied to. We've been told that it's just part of getting older. I am telling you right now, with all the authority I have, that is a lie. Losing your ability to feel your own feet is not a natural part of aging. It is a sign of systemic collapse. So, I want you to do something for me. I want you to pay attention. Tonight, when you take off your socks, I want you to really look at your feet. Are they pale? Are they cold? Do you see any small cuts you didn't know were there? If you feel that pins and needles sensation, I want you to stop treating it like a minor nuisance. Treat it like a fire alarm going off in your kitchen, because that is exactly what it is. Your nerves are the messengers of your life. They allow you to feel the grass under your feet, the warmth of a grandchild's hand, the vibration of the steering wheel on a cross-country road trip. Don't let those messages go silent. Don't let the sludge win. You have worked too hard and waited too long for your retirement to let it be stolen by a tingle that you were too tough to address. Listen to me closely. Your independence is your most valuable asset. Not your house, not your car, not even your bank account. If you can't move, if you can't feel, you aren't free. Let's take the first step toward reclaiming that freedom today. Let's stop the slow-motion destruction of your nerves before the damage becomes permanent. Mike from Gary wished he had listened. I am giving you the chance to listen right now. Your nerves are talking to you. Are you finally ready to hear what they're saying? Friends, I want you to listen to me very closely, because what happened to Elena in Boulder, Colorado, is a story that should keep every single American up at night. Elena was someone who thought she had cracked the code to a long, healthy life. At 42 years old, she was a successful freelance copywriter, a dedicated yoga enthusiast, and for over a decade she had been a strict vegan. She lived that beautiful outdoorsy lifestyle we all see in the magazines, hiking the Flatirons, breathing that crisp mountain air, eating what she thought was the cleanest diet on the planet. But Elena was living on top of a ticking time bomb, and she had no idea the fuse had already been lit. It started so subtly. Just a little flutter in her fingertips while she was typing up a proposal for a big client. A tiny, electric prickle. Does this sound familiar to you? Maybe you felt it while holding the steering wheel or gripping a coffee mug? Elena told herself it was just carpal tunnel. She thought, I'm just working too hard, I'm just a little stressed. She did what so many of us do. She tried to detox her way out of it. More kale, more green juice, more stretching. But the human body doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares about its biological requirements. Slowly, that tingling started to migrate. It wasn't just her hands anymore. It moved to her feet. Imagine waking up, swinging your legs out of bed, and the moment your feet hit the carpet, it feels like you're walking on a bed of dry cotton balls. You can feel the floor, but it's dull, it's distant, it's wrong. This is the moment when the panic starts to set in. Elena began to feel unsteady on her feet, like she was walking on the deck of a ship in a storm. Then came the day that changed everything. Elena was out on a trail, enjoying a solo hike. The sun was hitting the peaks, and for a moment she felt at peace. But then, without a single second of warning, her legs simply
Stopped working?
they buckled like a folding chair. She went down hard, the gravel tearing into her knees, the silence of the woods suddenly feeling very, very heavy. She tried to stand, and her legs felt like two heavy bags of wet cement. She couldn't feel her feet at all. She was paralyzed on a dirt path miles from the trailhead. A passerby eventually found her and dialed 911. Can you imagine that terrifying ride in the back of the ambulance? The sirens wailing, the paramedics shouting numbers you don't understand. Elena wasn't just crying because she couldn't move her legs. She was crying because she was a freelancer. She had a marketplace insurance plan with a deductible that looked like a mountain. She thought about her mortgage. She thought about her 401k. She thought, if I can't walk, I can't work. If I can't work, I lose everything. Am I going to end up in a state-run nursing home at 42 years old, relying on a stranger to wipe my mouth and turn me over so I don't get bed sores? That is the cold, hard reality of medical bankruptcy in America, friends. And it all started with a little pins and needles. Now, I want us to go inside Elena's body. I want to perform a slow-motion analysis of exactly why her world collapsed. Because just like we saw with Mike earlier, The nerves are the electrical grid of your entire existence. Think of your nervous system as a complex series of high-voltage wires running from your brain, down your spine, all the way to your pinky toe. Keep those electrical signals moving at lightning speed. Those wires are wrapped in a very special fatty insulation called myelin. Think of myelin like the thick rubber coating on a heavy-duty extension cord. If that rubber is thick and healthy, the electricity stays inside the wire and reaches the appliance. But in Elena's case, something horrific was happening. Because she had been a strict vegan for 10 years and hadn't been supplementing correctly, her body was completely depleted of vitamin B12. Now, why does that matter? Listen to me closely. B12 is the only mechanic in your body capable of repairing that rubber insulation. Without B12, the repair process stops. And when the repair stops, the destruction begins. This is what we call subacute combined degeneration of the spinal cord. It is as scary as it sounds. Step 1. The myelin begins to thin. It gets brittle. It starts to crack. Step 2. The insulation actually begins to dissolve like sugar in hot water. Step 3. The raw, naked electrical wire of the nerve is exposed. Now imagine what happens to a live wire in your house if the insulation is stripped off. It sparks. It shorts out. It starts fires. That tingling, that pins and needles sensation Elena felt? That was the sound of her nerves short-circuiting. The electrical signal from her brain was trying to tell her feet to move, but the signal was leaking out into the surrounding tissue. It never reached its destination. But it gets worse. Once that insulation is gone, the body's own immune system looks at that naked nerve and thinks it's an invader. It starts to attack. This is like rust eating through the block of a fine-tuned V8 engine. The metal begins to pit. The pistons start to grind. Eventually, the engine seizes. The nerve cells literally begin to wither and die from the inside out. This isn't just aging, friends. This is biological rot. When the neurologist in the ER looked at Elena's MRI, he didn't just see a deficiency. He saw a spinal cord that was literally being eaten away. He told her that if she had waited even one more week, the damage would have been permanent. She would have spent the rest of her life in a wheelchair watching her bank account drain away to pay for home health aides, all because her clean lifestyle was actually starving her nervous system to death. Does this sound like a risk you're willing to take? You might think you're being healthy. You might think that little numbness in your heel is just because of your shoes. But I'm telling you right now, do not ignore the check engine light of your body. Your nerves are talking to you. They are screaming for help. If you feel that tingling, if you feel that walking on cotton balls sensation, you're watching your insulation dissolve in real time. You are one short circuit away from a life-altering fall, a 911 call, and the total destruction of your financial independence. We have to stop the rot before the wires are gone forever. Are you ready to actually save your life? Or are you going to wait until the engine seizes? Friends, I need you to listen to me very closely right now, because what I'm about to tell you is the difference between spending your golden years on a cruise ship or spending them trapped in a wheelchair, watching your hard-earned retirement savings vanish into the pockets of a nursing home corporation. We've been talking about the silent killers, but this is the one that steals your dignity before it steals your life. Think about Robert. Robert is a 65-year-old man from Scranton, Pennsylvania. You know Robert? He's the guy you see at the diner every morning, the guy who's worked hard his entire life. Robert spent 40 years behind the wheel of a massive 18-wheeler, hauling freight across the interstate. He's a guy who loves his country, loves his Friday night high school football, and loves a good backyard BBQ. But life on the road is tough. It's a life of greasy truck stop burgers, liters of black coffee to stay awake, and then, at the end of a long haul, a stiff drink in the back of the cab just to quiet the humming in his head so he can get a few hours of sleep. For months, Robert felt a little something in his feet. He described it as ants crawling under his skin, maybe a little burning in his calves after a long shift. He did what most red-blooded American men do. He ignored it. He told his wife, "It's just poor circulation, honey. I've been sitting in that driver's seat too long. I'm just getting old." Does that sound familiar to you? Have you told yourself that the tingling in your fingers or the numbness in your toes is just part of getting old? Listen to me. That is a lie that will bankrupt you. Robert's ants crawling turned into a nightmare on a cold, rainy Tuesday night on I-80. He was hauling 80,000 pounds of steel. The rain was coming down in sheets. Visibility was near zero. And suddenly, the brake lights of a minivan slammed on in front of him. Robert went to shift his foot from the gas to the brake. And in that split second, the most terrifying thing a human being can experience happened. He couldn't feel the pedal. He knew his foot was down there. He could see his leg moving, but there was no sensation. It was like his right leg had been replaced by a heavy, useless piece of wood. He was flying blind at 65 miles per hour with a wall of steel behind him. He missed that minivan by inches, screaming in his cab, pulling the emergency air brake with everything he had left, the tires screaming as he skidded into the shoulder. He sat there in the dark, trembling, the rain drumming on the roof, realizing he almost killed a family because he ignored a tingle. When the ambulance arrived, Robert wasn't just worried about his health. He was paralyzed by the fear of losing his CDL. His commercial driver's license was his life. It was his 401k. It was the only way he could afford to pay off the house and finally retire with his wife. But as he sat in that cold ER in Scranton, watching the nurses run tests he knew he couldn't afford, the doctor walked in with a look on his face that told Robert his life, as he knew it was over. Now, I want us to go inside Robert's body. I want to show you exactly what was happening to his nerves in slow motion, because this is happening to millions of Americans right now, and you might be one of them. Imagine your nervous system is the electrical wiring of a beautiful, classic American home. Your brain is the circuit breaker, and your nerves are the copper wires running through the walls to the lights and the appliances. In a healthy body, these wires are coated in a thick, healthy insulation called the myelin sheath. It's like the rubber coating on an extension cord. It keeps the electricity moving fast and exactly where it needs to go. But in Robert's case, two monsters were eating those wires alive. First, we have to talk about the poisoning effect of that nightly stiff drink. This is what we call alcoholic polyneuropathy. You see, when you consume alcohol chronically, even if you don't think you're an alcoholic, that ethanol enters your bloodstream and acts like a solvent. Think about what happens when you pour paint thinner on a piece of plastic. It bubbles, it thins, and it eventually dissolves. Inside Robert's legs, the alcohol was literally dissolving the myelin sheath. Step by step, the insulation on his wires was being stripped away. When that insulation is gone, the electrical signal doesn't just travel slower, it leaks out. That's the pins and needles you feel. It's your nerves literally short-circuiting, sending false fire signals to your brain because the electricity is jumping off the wire and hitting the surrounding tissue. But it gets worse. While the alcohol was stripping the insulation, Robert's undiagnosed high blood pressure was acting like a slow-motion wrecking ball. Think of your smallest blood vessels, the ones that feed your nerves, as tiny, delicate garden hoses. Now imagine you turn the water pressure up so high that the hoses start to bulge and leak. In Robert's feet, the high pressure was crushing the microscopic blood vessels that carry oxygen to the nerves. Without oxygen, your nerve cells start to suffocate. This is a process called dying back. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts at the very tips of the longest nerves in your body, the ones in your toes. Imagine a V8 engine that hasn't had an oil change in 20 years. The metal starts to rub against metal. It gets hot. The friction creates tiny shards of steel that circulate through the engine, scratching the cylinders, clogging the fuel lines. That's what was happening in Robert's peripheral nervous system. His nerves were literally starving to death while being drowned in toxins. The doctor explained it to him this way: "Robert, your nerves are like a radio station that's moving further and further away. First you get a little static, that's the tingling. Then the music starts to cut out. That's the numbness. And eventually there's nothing but dead air." When Robert couldn't feel the brake pedal, he had reached dead air. The diagnosis was a double hammer blow: alcoholic polyneuropathy combined with idiopathic small fiber neuropathy. Small fibers are the scouts of your nervous system. They are the tiny, unprotected nerve endings that sense pain and temperature. Because they don't have that thick insulation, they are the first to die. They are the canary in the coal mine. When those small fibers wither away, you lose the ability to feel the world around you. You could step on a nail and not know it until your shoe is filled with blood. You could rest your foot against a hot radiator and not feel your skin beginning to cook. Friends, listen to me closely. This isn't just about a numb toe. This is about the total destruction of your financial independence. Robert was forced into early retirement. He lost his CDL that night. Just like that, his income vanished. He spent the next 3 months in specialized physical therapy, watching his retirement savings, the money he and his wife had saved for 20 years to travel to the Grand Canyon, drain away into hospital copays and expensive nerve mapping tests. He sat in his living room looking at his truck parked in the driveway, knowing he would never drive it again. He felt like a burden to his children. He was terrified that if he tripped and broke a hip because he couldn't feel the floor, he'd end up in a state-run nursing home, being moved from a bed to a chair by strangers while his 401k was liquidated to pay for the care. Is that the life you want? To have your children have to wipe your mouth because you can't feel your own face? To have to sell your home to pay for a rehabilitation center that smells like bleach and despair? I am not fear-mongering. I am telling you the physiological truth of how the American lifestyle is murdering our nervous systems. We eat the salt, we drink the stiff drink to deal with the stress. We sit for 10 hours a day and we ignore the ants crawling because we're tough. But your nerves don't care how tough you are. Once the wire itself snaps, once that axon inside the nerve dies, there's no bringing it back. You can't regrow a dead nerve like you regrow a fingernail. Once it's gone, the silence is permanent. Robert had to make a choice. He had to go stone cold sober. He had to change every single thing he put into his mouth. He had to learn how to walk again by looking at his feet, because he could no longer trust the signals coming from his legs. He saved what was left of his mobility, but he lost his career and his dream retirement. Don't let Robert's story be your story. Don't wait for the night on the highway when the tingle turns into a catastrophe. We have to stop the rot before the wires are gone forever. We have to address the rust in your V8 engine today, right now, before the engine seizes and leaves you stranded on the side of the road of life. Are you ready to actually save your life? Or are you going to wait until you're just another name in a medical file, watching your family's future disappear into the maw of medical bankruptcy? Listen closely, because the rules I'm about to give you are the only thing standing between you and the dead air. Friends, I want you to take a long, hard look at your hands right now. Then, I want you to wiggle your toes inside your shoes. Can you feel them? Are they buzzing? Is there a faint hum, like a low-voltage electrical wire vibrating under your skin? If you're feeling that pins and needles sensation, I need you to listen to me very closely. I am not fear-mongering. I am trying to save you from a future where you are a prisoner in your own body. You heard what happened to Mike in Indiana. He was a tough guy, a steel mill foreman, a man who provided for his family for 40 years. He thought a little buzzing in his toes was just the price of hard work. But while Mike was out there mowing his lawn and watching the Colts on Sunday, his blood was turning into a thick, abrasive sludge. Because of his undiagnosed blood sugar issues, those tiny glucose molecules were acting like shards of glass, scraping and scarring the delicate walls of the microscopic blood vessels that feed his nerves. Think of your nerves like a high-tech fiber optic cable running through your body. To work, that cable needs a constant pressurized flow of oxygen-rich blood. But when your blood becomes thick with sugar or toxins, those tiny pipes, we call them the vasa nervorum, they clog up, they wither. And when the blood stops flowing, the nerve starts to starve. It doesn't die all at once. It screams first. That screaming is the tingling you feel. It's the ants crawling on your skin. And if you ignore it, the nerve eventually goes silent. It dies. And once a nerve is dead, friends, there is no undo button. You end up like Mike, stepping on a metal shard, feeling absolutely nothing while your foot turns purple and your 401k evaporates into hospital bills that would make your head spin. But it doesn't have to be this way. You do not have to end up in a nursing home, relying on a stranger to wipe your mouth because you can't feel your own hand. There are 3 rules, free or low-cost rules that you can start today to stop this nerve rot in its tracks. The first rule is what I call the 10-minute glucose flush. Does this sound familiar? You have a big American dinner, maybe some mashed potatoes, a roll, a piece of pie, and then you sit down in your recliner to watch the news. In that moment, you're committing a crime against your nervous system. As you sit still, your blood sugar spikes. Without muscle movement, that sugar has nowhere to go. It sits in your bloodstream, and that's when the slow-motion glass starts cutting your nerves. Here is the rule. Within 20 minutes of finishing any meal, you must move for 10 minutes. I'm not talking about a marathon. I'm talking about a gentle walk around the block, or even just pacing in your living room while the commercials are on. Why? Because your large leg muscles are like a massive sponge. When you move them, they pull that sugar out of your blood and use it for fuel before it has a chance to settle and cook your nerves. This simple free habit is the difference between keeping your independence and ending up like Robert, the trucker from Scranton, who lost the ability to feel his own brake pedal. You have to flush the system. Don't let that sugar stagnate. Now let's talk about rule number 2, and this one is vital for anyone over the age of 55. It's the myelin shield protocol. You remember Elena from Boulder? She thought she was doing everything right. She was eating clean, practicing yoga, staying active. But because she wasn't getting enough vitamin B12, her body was literally dissolving the insulation off her nerves. Imagine an extension cord in your garage. It has that thick rubber coating on the outside to keep the electricity inside the wire, right? Your nerves have the same thing. It's called the myelin sheath. Without B12, that rubber coating begins to fray and crack. The electricity in your body starts leaking out into the surrounding tissue. That's why Elena felt those electric shocks in her fingertips. She was short-circuiting. Friends, B12 deficiency is an invisible thief. As we age, our stomachs produce less of the acid needed to absorb B12 from our food. You could be eating steak every night and still be starving your nerves. The rule is simple. Check your labels and look for a high-quality methylcobalamin supplement. Not the cheap synthetic stuff, look for methyl B12. It costs pennies a day. If you're a vegan like Elena, or if you're on a common acid reflux medication or a diabetes drug like metformin, you are at extreme risk. Those drugs can block B12 absorption entirely. You must supplement, or you're choosing to let your nerve endings fray until you can no longer walk a straight line. Do you want to be the person who falls in the bathtub because your brain lost the connection to your feet? Spend the $5 a month. It's the cheapest insurance policy you will ever buy. The third rule is the gravity pump ritual. This is for the millions of you who spend your days sitting, Whether you're driving a truck like Robert, working at a desk, or just enjoying your retirement in front of the TV. When you sit for hours, gravity is your enemy. Your blood pools in your lower legs. It becomes stagnant. It becomes deoxygenated. Those pins and needles are your nerves gasping for air because the old used-up blood isn't moving out fast enough to let the fresh oxygenated blood in. Every single hour, I want you to perform the gravity pump. Stand up, hold onto the back of a sturdy chair, and rise up on your tiptoes 20 times. Slow and steady. When you do a calf raise, your calf muscle acts as a second heart. It literally squeezes the deep veins in your legs and blasts that stagnant blood back up toward your heart, clearing the way for a fresh surge of nutrients to reach your toes. Listen to me closely. If you don't pump that blood, it turns into a toxic swamp around your nerves. This is how you get that walking on cotton balls sensation Elena described. It's how you lose your balance and end up with a broken hip that leads to a permanent stay in a skilled nursing facility. 1 minute of calf raises every hour costs you nothing, but it could save you from a $100,000 medical bankruptcy. I am telling you these things because I see it every day. I see men and women who worked their whole lives, saved every penny, and planned for a beautiful retirement, only to have it all stripped away by a tingle they thought was nothing. They ignored the ants crawling on their calves. They ignored the buzzing in their fingers. And by the time they reached my office, they were already halfway to the wheelchair. You have worked too hard to let your golden years be stolen by nerve death. You've mowed the lawns. You've coached the Little League games. You've paid your taxes. Don't let a lack of blood flow or a simple vitamin deficiency be the reason you can't hold your grandchild's hand. Does this sound like a lot to remember? It isn't. Walk for 10 minutes after you eat. Take your B12. Pump your calves every hour. These aren't just health tips, friends. These are the rules for survival in a country where one major medical event can wipe out your entire family's legacy. Don't wait for the dead air. Don't wait until you can't feel the floor beneath you. Start these rules today. Your independence, your 401k, and your dignity are depending on it. I'm leaning on you to take this seriously. Your nerves are sending you a signal. Are you going to listen, or are you going to let the ticking time bomb go off? The choice is yours, but I think you know what the right move is. Stay safe, stay mobile, and for heaven's sake, keep that blood moving. All right, friends, that's all for today's topic. Before we go, let's do a quick recap of the most important life-saving takeaways. Please etch these into your memory. Number 1. Never ignore the pins and needles. That sensation is your nerves literally suffocating from lack of blood flow or being poisoned by high blood sugar. It's the slow-motion death of your biological wiring. Number 2. Check your feet every single night. Since your nerves might be lying to you about pain, you have to use your eyes to look for redness or sores that could turn into a life-altering infection. Number 3. Take control of your fuel. Whether it's managing your sugar or getting that B12 checked, you have the power to stop the rot before it reaches the point of no return. Don't let your golden years be stolen by a condition you could have managed today. My friends, true health isn't an unreachable goal. It's hidden in the tiny choices we make every single day. I hope today's guide truly hits home for you. If you found this helpful, please don't be stingy. Give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your family and friends. Your single share might literally save a life and keep a family whole. I'll see you in the next video.